29 minutes to 7. Now, I did say today is a very special day because it's Zoe Mushana Grace's birthday. 1,096 days so far on this earth. That's 3 years. Get your calculators out. So happy third birthday to you, Zozo. I'll play you something, definitely. So she loves dinosaurs, and I thought to myself, how can someone be so obsessed with animals that apparently never even existed? The power of the things that we see, the power of what's planted. There's a lot of dinosaurs if you start to think about it. So yes, the dinosaur girl turns 3 today. Happy birthday to her, and what a beautiful day. If you are also celebrating your birthday, happy birthday to you. Now, onwards and upwards, we are looking at some of the cases that have been reported. Now, joining me in the conversation this evening is Mr. Kuda Masemanya. Kuda, good evening and welcome along. Good to have you on a Tuesday today, but always good to have you on our programs. How are you?
Thank you, Rumbi. Good evening to our listeners. It's good to be here again. Yes, on a Tuesday.
Good. Kuda, I was just giving a little bit of a context, and I said, there's issues that we're coming across now, quite often that deal with human trafficking, and of particular interest, a 27-year-old woman, Zimbabwean woman from Bulawayo, actually appeared before a magistrate in court facing charges of human trafficking. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Arukunzi akatengesa mwana pa Facebook. She is said to have sold her infant on Facebook. So there's a marketplace there for people who want to buy children, in quotes. And this was discovered, and she has been released on bail. But this is just but one case. So apparently there are these Facebook pages called adoptions, where people go in there, and so forth, and then transactions are happening. I want us to look at some of those implications, but I mean, starting off there, it's
quite shocking, Rundi. It's very disturbing and shocking to hear, especially the increase in these crimes. As you have rightly said, that this is not the first time we have seen this. It happened in 2020. It made some headlines sometime in 2023, getting into 2024, when we saw that Zimbabwean lady who delivered a baby in South Africa, that she had prior joined it's the same fashion. It was a Facebook group, and in the group she expressed that she was not able to take care of herself and the baby and the like. And some South African, Zimbabwean, and United States people have said, we can adopt your child at a fee, which then they agreed for 25,000 rands, if I'm not mistaken. She actually delivered the baby in South Africa, and then the baby was brought to Zimbabwe, where the transactions were then completed. But then arrest happened after police received a tip-off that there is a sale of a child that is taking place. So this is quite shocking to see that indeed we are having more and more of these issues. Remember, Rumbi, during our Thursday conversations, sometimes we looked at the impact and the implications of social media at large, data protection issues, and what have you. I think these are some of the things that, or some of the consequences that we are seeing coming through. Illegal activities actually getting to happen via these social media platforms such as Facebook. It's shocking to hear that there are Facebook pages which are being run, and people are buying babies. It's really shocking.
you know what, as you're saying that, let's break this down. Legally, there is a process of actually taking someone else's child to become your own. This is adoption, and this is a legal adoption.
Yes.
Maybe I think it's important for us to look at that. Is this provided for in our law? Zimbabwe, say, and what's the difference between this legal adoption that we're talking about and this case of this woman, Facebook page, let's talk about that and help vanokwanisa kupinda munao idzodzo.
Adoption is a legal process, Rundi, that is provided for. It's a legal process with its laid down procedures that are there. But what we do as a nation is that, remember what we always say is that our courts are considered to be the upper guardian of all minor children in Zimbabwe. So there is no transaction, so to say, for lack of better words, there is nothing that affects the interest of a child that is done and perfected without the approval of the courts. You need some court orders. You need to follow due process. So the first thing that is most important for people to note is that you don't solicit for adoption of a child to say, I want my child to be adopted. No, you don't do that. Because adoption, it's a parent or a person who voluntarily says, I want to adopt a child, not to say, I want to adopt a specific child. Because the moment they say, I want to adopt a very specific child, say, let's say this is a foreigner who is coming to Zimbabwe and say, Ndruda kwa adopta mwana wa Rumbi, immediately questions are raised. Of all the children who can be adopted, why specifically choosing mwana wa Rumbi? You know, so there is a process that is followed. Basically, the social service department is involved because there is the appointment of a probation officer who writes a report, who gives the recommendations, makes some assessment of the person who wants to adopt or who intends to adopt. So if the person is a foreigner, there is also a requirement of the social worker from the country of origin of that foreigner, which will have to be accompanied by the application for adoption to tell us what kind of a person is that person and what kind of the place that they live in. Are they in a position to be taking care of the child and whatever? So this is a very long process that is done, and all those reports and recommendations are put in place and then submitted, and then they are taken to court, and then the court will make its own determination of the application for adoption after having identified that this is the particular child that there is an intention to adopt. So it's a very long process. It has got its own requirements that are there. And remember, even a local person is allowed to adopt, and you are also allowed to a certain extent to adopt your relative, your relative child. These are forms now, different forms of adoption, which do follow different routes and different procedures are taken. But there is a legal way. But the most important thing that I am highlighting here is that you have to be authorized to do that through a legal process, and ultimately you need a court order that is authorizing or sanctioning the adoption itself. So this is the legal process. Now, then this one that we are seeing of people advertising that we adopt children, or anyone who wants to give away or sell away their children, we can adopt. It's illegal. The first thing that is illegal there is that there is a sale of the particular child. In adoption, it's not a sale transaction. So there is no one who is paid any money to adopt any child. This is the legal process. Now, this one that we are seeing whereby the parent is paid, it means the child is being removed completely from the life of the mother or of the parent. The parent will never, ever be able to see the child again. or has any form of communication or contact with the child. They don't even know if the child is going to live or the child is going to be killed. And because there is a transaction which is monetary, which has got a monetary value which would have taken place, it's assumed that probably they no longer have any right to know anything about that child. And then the child is taken and then moved. And Rumbi, to tell you the truth, one of the most shocking things is that these women, they are agreeing and entering into these illegal agreements before they even give birth. So it's during pregnancy that they do the transaction. You notice that from the example that we are discussing, when the woman came to Harare from Bulawayo to deliver the child, it is being said that soon after being discharged, she went. So the child did not even attain a month.
I think it was something like, it was a few days, actually. Yes. Yeah.
So there is nothing like that. This is purely an illegal thing that the law condemns completely.
Kuda, as you're saying that, I'm just wondering to myself, if there's a legal process, for adoption, iripo, and you said, it's been known to be quite a long drawn process. I actually remember, I think it was Takazo Tongoisi adoption. Actually, the child attained a majority age, but these are some of the issues that perhaps we can address in recommendations. Could Twitter say so that we avoid people sidestepping Mutemo Ripo? So the lady in question, I want us to talk about what the charge is. Saka aba mosha iri papi pa transaction yesei parikunzi pane human trafficking. What is that? And inobuda papi panau yakadaiso.
All right. I think firstly you raised an important issue. Is there anything that people should know or that can be done? We do have social services in Zimbabwe. We do have instances where mwana anogonongato nema parents ese, but for some reasons, members of the public are allowed to even approach the courts and say, pane mwana ari kugara pakati or go child line, what have you, that child's life is in danger. Children on daily basis, they are declared by the courts after an assessment through the social services. Such and such a child is declared to be a child in need of care. So then they are taken. They can be taken out. They can be removed from the custody of the person whom they have, and then placed in a scene. I don't know if I should call it better, because we also have this overwhelming. The environment in Zimbabwe is not that conducive. Even most of our children's homes, they are overwhelmed. Most of them, they've got their own struggles and what have you. But it's actually better to have the child placed in a children's home than to decide to take the illegal route of selling such an infant. This is a heinous crime. So you have asked to say what crime, human trafficking, and what have you. The moment you take a child, human trafficking, and in this instance, in child trafficking. But human trafficking is broad. It includes even my adults. We saw it in 2022, 2023. A number of girls in Zimbabwe were trafficked to the Middle East, Oman and the other Middle East countries on the pretext that they were going to get some jobs there and then trafficked. These are some of the cases that ought to be reported, because some of them were sexually abused, some of them were used as slaves, being used without being paid, and our government had to interfere and actually sent a delegation to the Middle East to collect all our girls and bring them back home. And we started then to see other people who were involved in those trafficking being arrested. And I remember one of the ladies was actually sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. That's another form of human trafficking, when you take a person and then you use illegal means to remove the person from their
point of origin. Yes,
yes, and then you transport them, usually through illegal means again, out of the country or out of to another location for purposes of illegal activity. So that's basically human trafficking. So we have these instances where people are, especially young girls, they are promised sex jobs, and then their documents are confiscated, they are taken, and then once tickets, you'll be flying and all that stuff. That's the trafficking part of it. So it's human trafficking. On this one, we are talking about a person, the mother gives birth to a child, decides to sell the child. That's the first crime that we see being committed there. You can't sell your child. Under whatever circumstances, you can't sell your child. Whether they are 1 day old, whether they are 10 years old, whether for whatever reason, it's an illegal thing to sell your child or anybody's child. Then secondly, we see the sale is actually for purposes of trafficking the child out of the jurisdiction, out of the country of Zimbabwe. That's another offense which we are seeing, which is the major offense, because this whole thing, the fake or the legal adoption process, the ultimate thing is to traffic the baby out of Zimbabwe, so that it will emerge as the main offense. So we will see these people being charged with child trafficking as they would have offended the law that relates to trafficking of persons, because we have adopted what is called the Trafficking of Persons Act as a nation.
And I also imagine kuti kubva kubulawayo kuenda kuHarare tatofamba kapa apane trafficking kapa. Tatofamba tapfura matoll gate tatotrafika mwana kapa.
Yes. Of course, trafficking at that stage, because actually
mu jurisdiction. I see. All right. No.
At the moment, it was handed over to someone. There is the crime has been completed.
Here's where it gets interesting, Kuda. Timbo, just for the sake of getting to a real understanding of this, is it still a crime even if no money is involved?
Yes, it's a crime. It's a crime because, remember, I have started by saying our courts are the guardians. They are the upper guardians of all minor children. So the law has actually we have made it very clear to say once you give birth to a child, you cannot do as you wish with that particular child. If you want the child to, or if anybody approaches you saying they want to adopt the child, they have to follow the due process of the law. It's not for you to say, oh yes, now let's just do it. It's an illegal because they don't have the right. Remember, Rumbi, for you to travel even with your own child out of the country, consent ya baba wake inofanira kunge iripo.
Ndizvozvo panotodiwa affidavit.
Panotodiwa baba vari kuti ndatendera kuti mwana aende afambwe naye kuenda kuSouth Africa, vari kuenda kuholiday, they will be coming back.
On this date.
These are safeguards zviri kuiswa to protect our children. Now you can imagine parents just meeting there and then agree to give a total stranger the child. It's illegal. It's not allowed. And the law is very clear about that.
What I found, further intriguing about this particular case and all the cases, you talked about Nauye Kugokwe, a 23-year-old woman selling her baby 2 days after giving birth in South Africa. Pane yatiri kutaura izvezvi yekubulawayo ya Christabel. There are several other cases, but what was so intriguing for me was the role that a tip-off played. And I want us to just talk about that. For for a little bit before we get to our messages from our listeners. What role does the community play? I know the tip of tip of the police. Could you know? Christabel had a baby. Now mwana chamuoni, and that was enough for the police to then be activated and start to investigate. Let's talk about the role that we play in our communities. Isusu vagere patinge chitazo mwana azoenda kupi nekodzero yatinayo kuti tinge tichito reporta kuti hatichaoni mwana panapa. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I think it's one of the key issues. Police, they are not everywhere. They are in our communities, kunema police stations, kunema police posts, but they cannot be everywhere. They can only act on information that Tinengeta providers as a community. So we play a very, very pivotal role. If any suspicion, if you have any reasonable suspicion, you are allowed to inform the police. That there is an activity that I don't understand which took place. The police will take it from there, do their investigation. They will not come back and say because wakatipa false information. No, it's just a suspicion. You may not even have evidence. You may just have a suspicion that I'm suspecting so and so. Remember, I have also stated that you are allowed to even go and make a report that there is a child that no gara pakati panamba yakati. It appears kuti mwana iye is life yake iri in danger. Haasi kugara zvakanaka. So you don't have to wait until mwana disappear. But if you just notice the activities that are taking place at a certain place or at a certain house, they are not usual activities. If you have that reasonable suspicion, inform the police, inform Child Life, inform or any responsible authority around, so that these can be acted upon. And I think the community actually does very well in that regard, especially. But I see it happening, especially kumamisa in towns. We have got this mind your own business. I don't care what happens next door. But kumamisha ndoko atichiri kuona this happening a lot. We are not sure what happened to the pregnancy. And then we see the whole community being involved. Munachitotorwa achoendwa naye kuma authorities or question pozoneka kuti munhu akabvisa nhumbu kana kuti what happened. But if the community keeps quiet, some of these things will just go unnoticed. But we need to step up as a community, especially in the town, and start to take these issues, especially which relate to children, because children, we are their mouthpiece. We are the ones who can speak on their behalf. Some of them, they don't have the capacity to speak for their own. They don't have the capacity, the ability to defend themselves. So we have to take it up upon ourselves and do it. Remember, I said it's not a crime even if your suspicions are then found to be wrong.
Baka Kosha Papa, could I quickly want to hear from our listeners? I think we need to also be able to speak to some of the issues that they are raising here. Madre in Adbeni says, what about surrogacy? A mother who carries babies for another. Do we have a law around that in Zimbabwe? Surrogacy maningi. I mean, we know of quite a few celebrities who have gone the surrogacy route. Zvinotenderwere muno muZimbabwe kuti zvonzi mimaizowi titakurirei mwana wedu achisununguka motipa for whatever reason pamwe tinenge tisingakwanisi isusu physically, biologically, or for whatever reason. Is there a law around surrogacy? So that's a no, Ray. Don't do it. Yeah, inogona utoita trafficking futika iwe.
Yes. Zimbabwe people.
All right. Maima Tipa, we love when Maima Tipa joins the conversation because this is her field. She's a social worker. And she says, I'm absolutely, you do, don't you? So she says, I'm loving and following the conversation. Thank you so much, Maima Tips. This one is from My Ano. My Ano says, our adoption laws are notoriously known to be difficult. I think we need to be alive to the fact that there are people who are unable to look after their children and adoption laws should be flexible. My aunt once wanted to adopt until she gave up. So our legal system doesn't actually promote adoption. What the lady in Bulawayo did was not proper, but does it not qualify as surrogacy? And why should a mother not be allowed to engage the parents she feels will be better placed to look after her child? Wow. That's a loaded one. What do you reckon, man?
All right. To me, I will beg to differ. I think if we slacken in our laws, we have to look on the other side. There is the other side of abuse. We don't want to have our children being abused because we have got a system that it permits that level of abuse. So I think our adoption laws, what they require thoroughness. It's not that angry difficult, but it's the question of thoroughness to really see kuti hatisi kuita trafficking here yakasvitwa sugar coat ichinzi adoption. Mwana ari kunzi ari kuadoptwa uyu pamwe akaenda kuaustralia pamwe ari kuenda kupi hatizomuone here aitwa gender transplant trans whatever zvaakuitwa mazuva ano hatizomuone here aakushandiswa achiitiswa child pornography. We have to be alive to that because nobody will ever take their own children and make them to act child pornography. But they will come here and take our children, go with them.
That's such a scary thought.
It's scary, it's shocking, and it's happening.
There are also issues of kana aya tinonzwa kuti kunenge kuchishandiswa vana kana kunzi vosona boots vosona ma-t-shirts, that kind of thing can also happen, isn't it?
Can also happen. Slavery, pure slavery can happen. Simply because we are facing hardships, and then our laws should be conducive. Then remember. The listener said why a mother shouldn't be allowed to choose the best person who can take care of a child. That's why in Zimbabwe we have got what we call guardianship. Guardianship, inopiwa 50% amai, 50% baba wemwana. This is also to guard against that maso decisions being made because the person anima hardships are now or anima stressful actions are now, and then something that is completely not in the interest of a minor child is done because munhu is not choice. So the law then says no. Let the two come. Whatever zvamuruda kuita baba wemwana ngauye apa mai wemwana ngauye apa. We also assess them kuti hamuna here capacity, because what the Zimbabwe's legal position, which I think is the correct position, there is no one on Mother Earth who can love a child more than the natural parent of that child.
Absolutely, and it's reasonable grounds, I think, for having such laws. It's to protect. Tafuma Muka comes in. Good evening, Tafuma, and says, Anzi, even those children, I think he's talking about the children, I said they could be mercenaries of all our conflicts. Mawan, kutivanozo tengeswa munapo, and we don't know what happens. This one says, how many people are allowed to adopt annually in Zimbabwe for us to see that the law is useful? Yes, we have trafficking, but we also have street kids all over our towns who the state cannot look after. That's why we are encouraging adoption. Even the locals are struggling to adopt. As we come to the end of the program, Kuda, I'm looking at our clock. In closing, these recommendations around, relaxing some aspects when it comes to our adoption laws, cutting the bureaucracy. Is this something that could help us forward or to see an increase in adoption and and less of these self-created adoption rings?
I think my own thinking would be, I think the best we should or must do is to capacitate our social services, our social workers and probation officers. If they are properly capacitated such that they can do all their work for purposes of bringing comprehensive reports on intended adoptions, the whole process would go so smoothly. Most of the problems associated are with regards to incapacitation of the social workers, rather than the letter of the legislation itself. I would say our legislation is okay.
All right. That's all the time that we had, Kuda, in this conversation. Thank you so much. Really, really thought-provoking and an important discussion. Let's keep our children safe. Trafficking is a crime and if you want to adopt, make sure you are using the right process. Thanks so much, Kuda. Let's talk again very soon. Have a good night.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you so much. With that, the time is 7 o'clock. You haven't go back,